All right, folks, welcome to session 4 of Build Citywide Design Challenge, the Thriving Communities Challenge. I am your host and facilitator, Mo Foster, and session 4 is about the importance of a point of view, the importance of a point of view for our clients. Go over the objectives for today. The first objective is to understand the importance of revision when crafting a POV statement. And then we're going to explore the concept of financial freedom as it relates to thriving communities with our very special guest, who I'm extremely excited to interview, Alfredo Mathew. The agenda looks like this. We're going to have a warm-up offering as usual. It's an offering that you can use at any point during your facilitation in the design challenge. We're going to have some brief reminders of the overarching design question and the steps to human-centered design. Then we're going to revise our Spongebob POV statement. We used Spongebob in our last session as our test client, and we're going to continue to use him throughout this session. And we'll go over the student-facing to-dos, which are to craft a POV statement before our next session. And then we're going to have our guest interview with business owner Alfredo Mathew III. All right, so this is the warm-up offering, folks. The way I envision this, it could be these two slides up on a board or a slide up on a board. You could give it a handout. It could be kind of also have like an art extension to it where you put up a whole bunch of posters around. There are several ways to approach this, but we're going to call this the welcome sign activity. And the way I would frame it with my students, there are a couple ways I would do it. One is to have students fill this in with a place, any place that represents one of the communities that they are part of. So it could be like a community center or a church. There could be their family household. It could be their neighborhood, city, whatever community they want to represent. And then something that's great that you will find in that area. And I also think this could be used as perhaps a check for understanding if students created a welcome sign for their client, right, based off of the information and insights they gathered around their client's community. All right, so my exemplar, because I've lived here in the Fruitvale, this has been the longest standing address I've had my entire adult life. I've been in the Fruitvale for over 10 years, and I said, welcome to the Fruitvale, where family is everything, because this is where I established my family. We've lived here for a long time, and that is the common theme in this neighborhood. I think that's what keeps me in this neighborhood, is that there are families everywhere. We're connected to a lot of families in the neighborhood. The theme is family, and that's what I love about here most. So feel free to steal this, make it better. And of course, as usual, I'll have links to this and these slides on the microsite. All right. So we're back to our overarching challenge question, which is our design question, which is how might we build powerful, thriving communities where everyone enjoys safety, wellness, and economic freedom? Now, again, Build has done some of the heavy lifting, some of the footwork for us in going out, finding clients all over the country, and then doing the interviews. And then we're doing the hard work of gathering those insights, right, from those interviews, pulling those insights, those needs, those wants, with what our clients are passionate about. And then we're going to whittle it down and define their needs and define a problem for them so that we can then ideate and build out a solution, right? Speaking of design, Lorinda Mamo says, every great design begins with an even better story. I thought this one was appropriate for today because when we are crafting a point of view statement for our client, we are essentially truncating their story, right? And giving a piece of their story to our team, right? And so oftentimes, sometimes folks come to the team with a POV. Some of this design process has already been done, right? And then they start to ideate from there off of the POV statement. So we're synthesizing our client's story, their needs, goals, a problem or obstacle that they're having, right? And that is how we are going to launch into our brainstorming into design. This is the human-centered design process. Again, remember, we gathered insights in empathize. Then in the first step of define, we clustered those insights to lead us to being able to craft the point of view statement. All right, and after we finish that, get our point of view statement, we'll get to jump into that brainstorming process. For some, it is the most exciting part. And for others, it'll be a challenge. Either way, that's why we call this a design challenge. Now remember the define stage, right? In the define stage, you will establish a clear idea of exactly which problem you will solve for the client by crafting a POV statement. Okay, so we're trying to really clearly identify a problem and a solvable problem. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we look at the Spongebob example. All right, POV statement, remember it had a format. All right, it's the person's name and descriptor needs a way to, right? And that's a verb about a deeper problem. Often time it points to an obstacle or a problem or an issue in a way that lets them do something. And this usually it leads to like the ultimate goal that that person has, right? In the last session, we concentrated on the person's descriptors, right? Because we said that it was very important to have that first part nailed down in a way where we could really understand certain personality traits of your client, not just the client's name, not just SpongeBob, not just where he lives, SpongeBob, who lives in a pineapple under the sea, but what other characteristics about SpongeBob are important to know if you don't know him. We talked about him being childlike, accident prone, etc. All right, so we did a little bit of clustering, right, by grouping details that are similar together. We had an exemplar video, and you can go back and look at that video from Mo the Builder where they explain how they do their clustering. And here's an example. So these are the Spongebob Insights. And then these were the 3 buckets pulled straight from that dynamic digital platform, builduniversity.org, where you will find everything you need, right, to guide yourself through the challenge. All right, so all of these are right on there. I'm just plucking them out and showing you how to put them into practice. So the 3 buckets we chose were client characteristics. We talked about actual like personality characteristics as well as anything physical characteristics or demographic information. We went through and made most of those blue. Then we made most of the problems or needs that they identified orange. And then we went through and identified any goals or passions that they had or things that they're trying to achieve in pink. And so you can see some of that work here. And then we showed an example of what page 4 in your student design book would look like. We used those insights to inform this page, the About Our Client page. Of course, this is our test client, SpongeBob. And it says, meet our client. Our client is childlike, accident prone, hardworking, wants a boating license. Single male identifying sponge, lives in a pineapple under the sea in Bikini Bottom and works at Krusty Krab. Interests, jellyfishing and boating. Okay, and so this is an example of what your our client page should look like now. And go ahead and just nail that down and get that done. That's one of the slides that you will be using later in your pitch deck. Okay. Keeping that slide in mind in our introduction, right? We then moved on to crafting the first part of our POV statement, part 1, right? And that's the client name and descriptor. The example here is SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab. That is the main descriptor, and I've already done some revision, and we'll talk about the revisions and why those are important. it was really this word loyal. And see there, and well, and then this was the first draft. Okay, so we took a crack at the whole thing, even though all the main deliverable was the first part, tried it out. And SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to achieve his lifelong goal of obtaining a boat driving license in a way that is both emotionally and physically safe for everyone. Because we found in the insights that every time SpongeBob goes to take the driving license test, he destroys the city or the school or something or the boat or many boats. However, he's always passing the written and the oral, and he knows everything's like top of his class when it comes to actually understanding the mechanics of what to do. So this was an okay solid draft, and if I was in a rush, maybe I would move forward, but we're not that much in a rush that we cannot revise. And the reason it's important to get used to this idea of revision is because that is what this process is. It's iterative. We talked about how it's a cycle, which means we might go back to anything and revise or gain more insights or do whatever we need to do to make sure that we are doing all of the best work we can for our client. So we talked about the descriptor. I'm going to go into why I made some revisions. So I was thinking about it, and I brought it back to the team. And SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab. Didn't quite cut it because loyal, while that's important for who he is, and it is a characteristic, and it is one of his personality traits and something to uphold, it had nothing to do with his needs and his goal at the time. It just didn't quite fit, like accident prone. I felt like the accident prone piece, which I had on the slide, but I left it out in the client descriptor. I felt like it was very important to put that back in, particularly when we're looking at what his full POV statement is about. So then you'll also see here that it says SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to achieve his lifelong goal of obtaining a boat driving license. Well, usually, and this is something that I'm still working through this, my whole team, I'm in a Stanford program right now for design thinking. And this is exactly where we are. We're spending 2 sessions on POV as well. And this is where things get a little tricky. One trick that I did learn was needs a way should speak more to an obstacle or problem that is standing in the way, and in a way that the next part should lead more to a larger goal that that person has in life. So by attacking this one piece, this one obstacle, and getting that out of the way, that would lend them to be able to do the next piece, right? And maybe that's like, it's still kind of murky. I'm still getting there in my understanding. That's the wonderful thing about design, is that it's something that you can study forever and you still won't necessarily be an expert. I find those things fascinating. So you'll see that I made this change and this revision. Now it says SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, accident-prone, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to prepare for the physical portion of the boat license exam, right? Because it's really the physical portion. It's not the written or the oral. All of that seems to not be a problem, but we're running into a problem every time he gets behind the wheel of the boat. So in a way that will ease his anxieties and set him up for success when it's time for the real test. Notice here that I didn't say in a way that will make sure he passes the test, because really any number of things could happen to get in the way of his success in passing the test. But we do know that one of the issues that he's having is like some sort of performance anxiety is popping up when it's time to get behind the wheel of that boat. And we want him to have the best opportunity he can to pass that test in real life. So The new and improved POV statement looks like this. SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, accident-prone, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to prepare for the physical portion of the boat license exam in a way that will ease his anxiety and set him up for success when it's time for the real test. Now, I'm just gonna, warn you that the next time you see this POV statement, and you will see it again right before we kick off the next portion, the next stage of this design challenge, I will have looked at it one more time and revised it one more time. And I already know what revisions I'm going to make. Maybe you can guess and make some inferences yourself. And if you do, you can comment over at the YouTube page where this video is right now. All right. Then I gathered evidence from insights. I'm just one of those people. If somebody asks me, well, where are you getting that from? I like to show what they call the receipts, right? That's what the young people say. Show me the receipts. I like the receipts. So I was always the one with all the notes, letting you know where I got things from. I love to cite things because those are the receipts. Well, here are the receipts. In our insights, I got that his biggest goal is to obtain a boat driving license. He's very emotional. He's childlike and jovial, right? And he can never pass his driver's test no matter how many times he tries. He destroyed the boating school several times. He knows all of the answers to the exam questions, but crashed his boat during the test due to anxiety. We've got a lot of insights just like that on his board. Why do you need the evidence? Well, I'll show you. On pages 6 and 7 in your design book, right? First, you're going to, and you'll see right here that it says what to do. It says create 3 drafts. The point of view, that's not just something I'm doing. This is something I highly recommend doing because, again, once you're able to get this story down, you'll have so much inspiration to brainstorm about solutions, right? What kind of solutions could help get them through this and to their goals. So you'll see I have a draft written there, and it says to write it in blue, just like I did here. And then you'll see that here is where I will put my final POV. This is just my second draft right now. And then I list 3 insights, right? 3 problems or needs that my client has over here. And it was easy to do that because I already took a snapshot of the insights clustered in my evidence of insights. The student-facing to-dos, what is due this time? Well, between last session and this session, you should be able to have a POV statement or revise the one that you worked on in the last session, right? And then complete pages 6 and 7 of the design book, the POV section, right? You'll need all of those things. And I want you to know if you've gotten this far, okay, you are at where even my team, right? My Stanford team, we are here. We are right here in this murky area of trying to assess needs, right? We are pushing back against wanting to solve the problem or state the problem and the solution in the POV statement. We are exactly where you are. So, but I want you to know I'm excited because I've done this enough times to know once we're past POV, okay, it's like when you're hiking, this is like the steepest hill on the hike. Everything else goes from there. Now, I'm not saying it's not going to get a little rocky or, you might not go off trail a little, but it's going down after this. So applaud yourself, give yourself a pat on the back that you got here. This is POV statements. It's not easy. We don't write POVs every day, but after you do these 3 drafts of POVs, you might start talking in POV, right? I was talking to my dog the other day, like my literal dog. And I was like, see, my dog needs a way, right, to go take himself for a walk in a way that would make me feel secure that he'd come back, right? I don't even know if that's a real POV statement, but it's just fun to try. So go ahead and start POV all over the house. Your parents are going to call me and say, what is going on? But that's okay. I'm ready to take that call because everybody should be practicing, right? Learning how to put yourself in other people's shoes. and create a point of view. All right, folks, enough of that. If we are clear on all that is expected of you, this is the part that I was waiting for. Okay, this is the part I've been excited for all day. Today, as promised, we have another special guest interview. Experienced urban educator, nonprofit leader and business owner, Alfredo Mathew. Also, Alfredo literally lives my dream. So yeah. So I was online and I'm listening to Alfredo on a podcast, and he's interviewing a former student who has a consultancy business that he's utilizing. Like what? That's that full circle moment that I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for my students to then later have businesses that I get to use. That's the community I'm trying to build. And so when I was listening to that podcast and listening to that interview, my heart felt warm, and it just let me know that I'm on the right track, because I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want for my community. So hello, Alfredo. I'm going to stop sharing here.
Hello, Mo. Is this the Mo Foster show? Am I on the Mo Foster show?
You're on the Mo Foster show. I gotta give you my my talk show hands.
I like it. Is this syndicated? Where we broadcasting?
Hey, after this interview clip, maybe I might have some.
Yeah, I think you do. It's going well.
So please, introduce yourself for the folks. Let us know what we should know, and then I've got some questions for you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cool. So my name is Alfredo Mathew III. I am a former teacher. So as you are going through that lesson, I'm just remembering all my years as a humanities teacher in the South Bronx, in East Oakland, LPS, Castlemont High School. And I love teaching. I love young people. But I discovered I really love entrepreneurship, and I really love entrepreneurs. And so a number of years ago, I left teaching, became a nonprofit director, and then I couldn't teach entrepreneurship without living entrepreneurship. So I left, started my own small business, and I'm on this journey from self-employment to business ownership to investor. And that's the journey that I'm on, and that's the journey I'm really enjoying.
I love it. Again, see, these are really my dreams, and I really want to explore that, that teacher, educator turned entrepreneur, because it's not as rare as one thinks. And I think there's so many like similar qualities that educators and entrepreneurs have already. And even though a lot of educators wouldn't consider themselves entrepreneurial.
I always considered, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. No one ever encouraged me to start a business. I mean, I was a teacher because my parents were teachers, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to work in the community. I wanted to give back, and I wanted to be in the community, but I was very entrepreneurial. I taught in New York City. I taught in Pasadena, California, in Oakland. And I can honestly say I never taught the same thing twice, because I always wanted to come at every classroom fresh. And I love the innovation of teaching. You might have 5 classes back to back, but you do that first class, wait a second, that didn't go as planned. You're tweaking it throughout the day, just like you are iterating on that point of view. That's what you do as a teacher. So I became a master improviser, and you have to improvise on the fly. Teaching gives you relationship building muscles, which you need to be an entrepreneur, gives you resilience and stamina, which you definitely need to be an entrepreneur. And you have to have that opportunity recognition. You have to be that innovator. You have to be able to weave with, your young people, with what's happening in the world. And so I learned a lot through my teaching. But then I recognized that I wasn't I was part of that college for all, like, hey, let's get everyone into college. And I just saw too many of my young people not making it in college. And I realized it's because they didn't know why they were going to college, didn't know how they were going to pay for it, have to work, have to make a living. And so to this theme, so so many people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be self-employed. You see the trends right now, right? I saw the stats. 3% of American workers quit their jobs last month. There's a whole movement of people leaving their employment because they realize they have more options. And that's what I think entrepreneurship gives you. It gives you options, it gives you freedom, it gives you autonomy.
You know, okay, you're leading me to a few of my questions I had for you, but one of them, just because I love this term and I wanted to hear you define it for me. And I think I've only really seen this term in relation, like in articles like that feature you or interviews with you, but community responsive. What does it mean to be community? Because we hear so much about culturally responsive teaching. But I feel like when I heard community responsive, I was like, see, now that's the one that's what I'm talking about. What I want to hear what you mean by it when you talk about being community responsive as an educator.
So as an educator and as an entrepreneur, like what you're teaching in this course, you have to listen to your customers. You don't work for yourself, you work for your customers. Without your customers, you have no business, right? Teachers, you don't work for yourself, you work for your students. That is your customer, that is your client, right? They literally decide whether you're successful or not. So for me, community responsiveness is you have to start where your students are at, where your customers are at, and you have to meet their needs. If you're not meeting your customers' needs, if you're not meeting your students' needs, you're not getting the job done. You might be getting paid, but you're not getting the job done. And when we launched ESO Ventures, which was definitely a community responsive company, it was in response to the needs that we saw from the entrepreneurs who walked through our doors, walked through our virtual doors. We, did not have a track record. We just had a name, ESO Ventures. We didn't have any funding. We put up a website, made some videos, and we put a call out to the community. And we got 100 entrepreneurs who walked through the doors and said, hey, I'm looking for support. I want to start a business. I've been running this business out of my home for a number of years, but I don't quite know how to formalize it. I don't know if I really have what it takes. What should I do? How do I begin? And we didn't even have a curriculum. We literally had nothing. We made it up on the fly like a good teacher, right? Sometimes you don't have the lesson or you don't have the right lesson, so you have to create it. And you create it with the folks who are in the room, with the entrepreneurs that are there. We built the curriculum around the needs of our entrepreneurs. We did it once, it was prototype A. We did it again, prototype B. And now we're at the place where we're doing our third cohort. Now we're formalizing our curriculum. Now we're formalizing our model. Now we already have customers. Now we have people who are purchasing the curriculum, community colleges, before it's even really built, because we demonstrated product market fit. We demonstrated that we have a product that people want, people are excited about. It's not even fully built yet. But now we know that we have a market, we have customers, we're adding value, and it's exciting. But you have to respond to the community. You have to listen to your customers.
Yeah. From all the things that I've seen online, ESO is growing rather rapidly for something that started, in the middle of and during a time when it was either pivot for most folks, or a lot of folks took a lot of losses during that time. So it was definitely community responsive from everything that I've read about. And it leads me to my next question, which is like, how does small business contribute to the wellness of communities?
If we don't have small businesses, we don't have communities. That's literally, like, that's as important as it is. Small businesses are 99.9% of all of the businesses in America. Literally, it is the fabric of our society. 1 out of every 2 adults is going to start a business at some point in their lives. The majority of those businesses will be sole proprietors, will be solopreneurs, will be non-employee enterprises. 96% of all Black businesses are sole proprietors. 92% of all Latino businesses are sole proprietors. It's literally millions of people who are self-employed, trying to create their own wealth, their own well-being. And what I think is really tough is that we no longer have an economy that supports small business entrepreneurship. We have an economy that's all about consolidation. It's all about tech platforms. It's all about, obviously Amazon and the big retailers, but you look across, small businesses have to compete with these big, giant corporations. And that is something that I and many others are saying that's not equitable, that's not accessible. We can't have a society where entrepreneurship is really about the 1% of the 1%. We need an entrepreneurship for the 99%. And a small business does not mean that you're making small money. A small business can generate $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. You can have up to 500 employees and still be a small business. That's not small. That's a huge impact. So for me, small business is everything.
Mhm. I had a feeling you say something like that. I So then, okay, I have a few questions for you. I've heard you speak about design, and design is like one of my favorite things. I just feel like once you get used to the design cycle and embedded in this process, it's so helpful everywhere, right? No matter what your goals are, whether they're financial or for social impact or a combination of both. And so I was wondering what you think the relationship between design and social impact is.
Design and social impact.
Mhm.
Um, well, I think it's about your intentions and your values. Your intentions and your values come out in how you see the world and whatever you're going to build. And so you need a vision first of what you want your life to be and how you want the lives of others to be. And you have to be very clear on what you value, and you have to live according to those values, and you have to create a commercial enterprise in line with your values. If you value family and you value health and you value wellness, but you create a business that causes you to get divorced because all you do is focus on building the business and not taking care of your family, or you're trying to improve people's health and wellness, but you're getting a heart attack because you're stressed out or whatever, or you're harming other people, or you're harming your workers, your business is not aligned to your values. Ultimately, you're not achieving the impact that you want. So I would say vision first, and values and intentionality has to be aligned with whatever you design and create. And I think we struggle with social impact. We really struggle because we need social impact, but we also need economic sustainability. And balancing purpose and profit is really difficult. But that's what I'm trying to do. That's what a lot of people I know are trying to do. But it is very difficult because if you are not profitable, you will not stay in business. But look at how much is changing,
Mhm.
because you can have a business out of your living room, out of your bedroom. It's not the storefront anymore because, right, my wife is a mental health therapist. She left Kaiser and now she is freelancing work. She's doing virtual mental health therapy. She is self-employed now. She's one of that 3% of Americans who quit their job and wanted more flexibility.
Mhm.
that I think is the reality for most of us, right? Where people are like, hey, you know what? I don't necessarily want to just do the 9 to 5 and work for the, like, I have lots of different sides to me. I want to pursue them. And so I want the flexibility to, sell this, to teach that, to, I mean, that's what I hope, is that we have the social safety net, the supports, the access to the healthcare, the access, right, to pre-K, right? Like your daughter, my, like, how much we spent on pre-K? Oh my God, that was rent. That was rent. So it's like, if we can have some of the supports, access to healthcare, access to education, child tax credits, et cetera, people might have the flexibility to pursue entrepreneurship, which I think would be wonderful, because if you do it well, you can live a purposeful life, you can add value, and you can, ultimately identify what you really want to give to the world and create it.
Actually leads me to my next question, which is, what is your personal definition of financial freedom?
My personal definition, you have good questions. Personal definition of financial freedom. Making enough money that my wife is not worried and asking me when I'm going to get paid. That is the definition of financial freedom. And I'll give you a caveat. When we started ESO Ventures, when we got the first check, I was on unemployment because I had lost all my customers for my consulting business during the pandemic. I was applying for PPP. I got a month worth of unemployment, and then I got a $2,500 check to start the project. And Ryan, your colleague Ryan, he knows, because I was in the middle of kind of like pitching things and trying to figure out what I was going to do. That economic insecurity is what all entrepreneurs go through the first few years in business. If you don't have a bankroll, if you don't have a runway, you're literally living check to check. When is the invoice going to get paid? Once I get paid, then I can pay off my debts, then I can do this. And so financial freedom comes from having those basic needs met. And right, and I have 2 kids, I've got a wife. I am not a 22-year-old kid with no responsibilities. Like, I have a lot of responsibilities. I took a big risk, but I believe in the reward. I believe in the journey. I'm enjoying the journey. I'm not burning my relationship. And soon I'm going to have that financial security, that baseline. I've been struggling for 2 years with the ups and downs to get here, but I had that North Star, and I got enough encouragement. I got enough customers. I got enough opportunities. I've seen enough wins, and I have enough great people around me, including my partners, Ben Wansma and Martha Hernandez, who we joined this journey together, and we're doing this together. And that's incredibly important, right? If you're on the journey, but you're all by yourself and you're not getting wind behind your sail, it's very difficult to keep going. But I'm looking forward to the day when I have multiple streams of income, when I have multiple projects. I've launched a podcast series with a case for cannabis with the community colleges. I have my consulting business, and now I'm a partner at ESO Ventures. And I know that there are other businesses that are going to happen that I'm going to launch, or that I'm going to be an investor in the next few years. And so I see the potential, but I had to take a lot of risk in order to get here. And luckily, my wife stuck with me, and I was able to, hustle and pull in the resources. But that is the big challenge. And you don't have to make it big, but you do have to make it. You have to know what your break even is, and you have to figure out how you are going to break even. How many months is it going to take before I can do this? And so you have to have those financials figured out for your life and for your business.
I mean, I'm just excited about all the places I will be able to use these gems
Mhm.
throughout the curriculum, because you're just touching on so many things that we try to get across to the students. And we only have so much time, so that's why these expert
Mhm.
interviews are very important. Um, we are talking about thriving communities, so my last question is really just um, pondering and knowing that you've lived coast to coast, right? Because you're from the East Coast, right? So you've lived coast to coast. I have a question: is there a correlation between geographic location and opportunities for advancement?
Well, I mean, New York, I'm from New York. New York is a landing place. You get into New York, that's where you get your start. And then you hopefully move from New York, right? Like, and you move on and you figure that out. Oakland is also a landing spot. It attracts people, it draws people, and then folks move around. When I think about how much people are moving during this pandemic, how much people are just moving in general, people are moving either for opportunity or for affordability. I see a lot of movement towards opportunity or towards affordability. Where it's affordable is not necessarily opportunity. So as we see a lot of folks leaving Oakland for Stockton, for Antioch, for down south, are there more opportunities there, or is it just affordable? I am concerned that so many folks have to move for affordability, but there is not economic opportunity. There's not a good education system. And how are you ever going to make it back? Because there is opportunity in Oakland. There is opportunity in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley. There's opportunity in New York City. Access to it is very, very expensive. But I also believe that you can create your own opportunity wherever you are. You do not need to be in Silicon Valley to create a tech company. In fact, I hope you don't go to Silicon Valley to create a tech company, because we're getting turned on to, we can't just be looking in the same old places for entrepreneurs or for talent. We have to be looking in non-traditional places, because that's where the real overlooked talent is. And in a competitive workforce like we have today, because it is a very competitive workforce, I believe companies are going to start looking elsewhere, finding talent in new places. And I hope that if we can create enough entrepreneurs, not in Silicon Valley, not in New York City, or at least not in Manhattan. I want entrepreneurs in the Bronx, entrepreneurs in Brooklyn. I want entrepreneurs right in Weehawken. I mean, I want entrepreneurs in the unusual places, because we're going to have less inequality. Inequality has been driven by too much concentration of wealth in certain zip codes, too much venture capital going to a certain class of company. And I just believe we need to, share prosperity. If we have broader shared prosperity, we're going to have a less inequitable society, and that's going to help white folks, that's going to help Black folks, that's going to help Latinos, Asians, it's going to help everybody, when everybody has more of a chance at that piece of the pie.
I couldn't agree more, Alfredo. And this might be just a small portion, but that's why we're really working hard to get this design challenge and as many resources of the design challenge in as many cities in the country as possible. Just because even just exposing young people to design thinking and this new way of looking at problem solving or finding opportunities where there are challenges, I think has a value of its own, and I'm really hoping that we're able to get these digital, and you're part of that right now, right? And
Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, you're part of that right now, because not every class, right? Every class in every part of the country can't have you walking in there necessarily, right? And giving a spiel or doing a
Could
panel,
have been. I was there every day. I
right?
don't know if they appreciated it. I was
Hey,
there every
that's
day.
right. Let them know. But and now we're hoping with this content to get you into as many classes as possible in the country. I'm so thankful for you stopping by today and answering some questions. I'm going to open the floor to anybody else because we only have a few minutes left.
Well, I've been listening, and you're inspiring the next generation here, Alfredo. We got Bella on
Oh, hi,
track,
Bella.
listening to you about economic freedom, inspired about your vision of spreading investment to all corners, all communities. And I wanted to double down on that piece, making this transition from educator. Oh, Bella's got questions. From educator to entrepreneur to investor. Like, I love that journey and that arc. What are some skills you had to learn as an educator that make you a good entrepreneur?
As I shared, the entrepreneurial mindset is something that you have to have as an educator, right? There's innate things, and then there's things that you develop. But number one, like the role that I play in the work that I do a lot of business development. What is business development? It's relationship building. It is, right, trying to get sales. And so much of what you do as an educator is you're establishing rapport every single day, and you never take it for granted. And so that optimism, that kind of like consistency, and people don't do business with people who are not consistent. People don't do business with people they don't like. People don't do business with people they don't trust. So, and young people don't learn from people they don't like. Young people don't learn from people they don't trust. Young people don't learn from people who don't inspire them. So there's a lot that you do every day as an educator that is transferable to so many different walks of life. I always hated it when I would, meet people, because I taught for 14 years, 7 years in New York City, 7 years in California. And I hated it when I would meet people from other walks of life and they, oh, you're an educator. God bless you. Oh, thank you for, man, I always hated the way people from outside looked down on the work. I never looked down on it. I always thought it was very powerful, impactful work. But I also was frustrated at that ceiling that I hit as an educator. No matter what I did, I could only move up on the step and ladder. And so after a while, that just grated on me that it was not a meritocracy, that I was not being rewarded based on my performance, that I could, I don't know. It just didn't sit right to me that there was no growth for me in the profession. And I didn't want to become a principal. I wanted to figure out. And so I left, and I figured out creativity. Teaching is like the same thing. Xerox, you know how many years I spent at that Xerox photocopier, right? For 14 years making those copies. I have so much more creativity and flexibility. I have so much more control over my day, and I'm still teaching, but I'm teaching adults now. I'm working with adult entrepreneurs. I still work with young people, but I'm giving them business, or I'm giving them advice, or I'm coaching, or I'm advising. But there's so much that's translatable. But what's fun is having different chapters in life and enjoying the stage and the chapter that you're at in your life.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mo. And you